my sister and a chief married in Nigeria recently. She just came back from the Giants of Africa. So we are so happy to have our sister, our friend, a diplomat here on our Nigerian and Diaspora organization, America's Radio. So my name is Dr. Tommy. I am the co-host along with Mr. Collins. Over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. We are so pleased and so honored to be able to have our dear Honorable Valencia Stovall, who is now, like you said, recently married to a Nigerian chief, and as well, of course, according to the title, once you're married to a chief, you equally earn that title. And we're really excited to hear the stories and the travel adventures and the whole stuff that you were able to mystify in the community. First of all, thank you so much. Thank you for making us proud. We really appreciate that. You're more than welcome, madam, please.
Thank you. I appreciate it, President Collins and Dr. Toomey. We, of course, first connected I think Dr. Toomey and I connected some years back.
Yes.
But I didn't realize until we reconnected last September, coming down to NIDOA's conference in Savannah. Yes. And I appreciate Daniel Emma for reaching out to me with Linkway Diplomats and extending the invite to be able to join you all. And I brought my daughter with me as well on that trip. So I'm excited. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and your listening audience about my experience as an African American and kind of intertwining in with the Nigerian culture, specifically with the Yoruba tribe. And so, yes, recently I went to Nigeria in October of last year. I'm about to say this year. We haven't got to October yet. But last year. And it's been a long dream of mine. I got started, actually was first introduced to the Yoruba culture, Nigerian culture, through a good friend of mine who's since passed away, but High Chief Emmanuel Adeyemo. And I had been knowing High Chief for about 10 years, of course, before he received his chieftaincy title. And he done a lot with educating me and sharing his tradition, the culture, and very open with many questions that I always had about Africa. And so he was like the closest connection to Africa that I had that was very free and open to answer any question that I had. And what I noticed about him, and even subsequently talking with other Nigerians, is that your love for your country is just phenomenal. I mean, no matter, even when I went to visit, and some things I saw was like, what is that? I didn't understand, but just still, and no matter what Nigerian I meet, it's still the same. You all love Nigeria. And those who come from other parts of Africa love Africa.
Yes,
and that's very inspiring, especially, me going to actually go and get a chance to visit. And so that trip was more of a real personal trip for me because of, like I said, my involvement with Chief Adeyemo, and then we started the Yoruba Culture Day. We did that down at the Capitol when I was a state representative. I served 8 years. And so that was the first time ever done in the state of Georgia where we recognized the Yoruba culture at the state capitol. And then from there, it was, the years after that, a couple of years after that, each year we would do some type of celebration, whether it was online or in person. And in 2023, we got a chance, the Oluwu of Owu, His Royal Majesty Matamola, actually came to Georgia, and we took him on a tour of the inner city of Atlanta. And then so all of that motivated me to say, I got to go, because he invited me to come to his palace. And I was like, okay, I'm coming to Nigeria. I don't know when, but I'm coming. October was a build-up, and I had already met through virtual Zoom, a lot of Zoom meetings over the years, King Jimo, His Royal Majesty Rasat Jimo, and so talking to him, and I was like, I got to go see him in his palace. Now, mind you, I have no idea how everything works, how the roads are, or nothing. So I'm thinking with my American head, oh yeah, I'm gonna go see that. We're gonna go do all of that till I got there, and I realized, oh, it's a journey going to all these different places. And so, getting off the airplane was an experience. Even going over there was an experience.
The long flight.
Was an experience, but because I wanted to go so bad, nothing was a bad experience. I was very positive about everything that happened. I said I'm gonna be positive about it because this is an experience for me. So I don't know if y'all want me to continue on or you want to interrupt in.
No, it's good to hear your positive experience, and you just say a key word. You were open to experience. You didn't. I tell my friends, don't have any expectations. Just be open and just be open to learning, and you're just going to be blown away. So I'm happy that you were able to go, and then you now went back again recently, correct?
Yes. So I in October I got a chance to go to the palace, to the Ogun's palace. Actually got a chance to meet with him. We talked about his trip when he came to Georgia. It was funny because he asked me about the presidential race at that time. And so we chatted a little bit about that. Yes. And took pictures. So that was very, very emotional for me because when he came here, he gave me a picture frame of the palace, the Ogun Kingdom Palace. Yeah. And so when I got there, I was like, oh, it does kind of look like the picture that he gave me. So, and then we visited Badagry when I was there, which is for African Americans going back to where our ancestors actually left and on their way coming here to America is a real, real big thing for most African Americans because we're the only race in the United States who cannot trace their ancestry directly back. You have people come from Germany, even people that come from the Latino communities. Everybody can say my grandmother, my grandfather, my great-great, this and that. We can't say any of that. Most majority of us cannot. And so when my dad did the DNA test in 2022, and his dad's all the way back came up as a Yoruba ancestor. I was like, oh my goodness, I've been doing work for
Look at the connection.
I didn't know. I said, I see what they talking about the ancestors because we don't, as African Americans, we don't have any clue about when we hear you all talking about ancestors and we go into the ancestral land, be like, what they talking about? Okay. But I became a true believer at that point in time when I saw the results. I was like, wow.
See?
And so being able to go to Badagry and see and feel and see actually where they walk to get on the short
boat,
short ship boat and then going all the way out into the Atlantic. It was just it was a wonderful experience. I got a chance to visit all the museums. It was hot, y'all. It was hot.
I know.
It was hot. A fan that I had like this. It was hot. It was hot. And the roads, oh my goodness. That was an adventure by itself.
That was an adventure.
Yeah, and seeing the entrepreneurship, I guess I was just so amazed at the environment, but it looked like it didn't bother them with the environment that they were in. They still were selling and moving products and goods. I saw women with the basket and the food on top of their head. I was like, how they didn't have to put their hands up there?
Market woman, yes.
I was like, what?
Yes.
So it was good. So then when I left and came, even during that trip, I did get married to
Congrats.
Yes. And he's not
Congratulations.
Yeah, he's not a chief, but he's an elected official. But his dad, his dad was the first ballet Wasimi. So I guess that does kind of run into that for your
royal family. Yes.
Yes. And so so we got married, and actually I met him through Chief Adeyemo some years ago. And so he was my tour guide. So I had a personal tour guide, which made a lot of difference.
Yes.
Even we were going, because he was like, okay, you have to do this. You know about this. So I was like, oh, okay. And so that helped ease a lot of my anxiety about going to a country for the first time. I've been to some other countries through a cruise ship, but never like flying and spent 10 to 11 hours in the air. I did nonstop. And so it, just going and then coming back and then said, hey, I'm ready to go back again.
Yes.
Going back in February, and I stayed for about 16 days that time.
Okay.
And so at that time I did go to Olamu Rock, got a chance to climb up 132 steps.
Ooh.
I didn't know that many when I got started, but it was beautiful to be able to see that and be able to see the steps from the Ogun River. I mean, it was just amazing. Yeah. The whole trip. We stopped by the Kuti Museum, but they were closed for renovations. Okay. And so it was good in tasting the food. I'm not a big food taster. And so even the experience in the restaurant at the hotel where we were staying at, in my dialect, of course, trying to tell them what I want, and they was like, I don't understand. I said, no, I got to figure out how this. I wanted some fried chicken, and they was like, what? And so I learned that it was chicken lap that I wanted, because I wanted dark meat. So I found out that it's called chicken lap. I had no idea about that. So it was a whole new culture shocker.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad that you kind of mentioned about the culture shock. You're pretty much telling us exactly, kind of indirectly answering some of the questions that we have as regards to the conversation. And I'm just trying to imagine your story. It's something to tell. Hopefully in the future, you're probably going to be writing a book as regards to, mystifying Africa, specifically Ogun State or wherever you've been to. But let me ask you now, one of the questions that we have for you for today is how can we now create a platform that we can use to promote this cultural exchange and as well as economic, cooperation between Nigeria and the state of Nigeria, such as like trade expos and investment summits. On your own opinion, how do you think, based on what you have seen and experienced traveling, what do you think would be a good way to do that?
Well, everything starts with a conversation. And I think that the success of my experience visiting Lagos and also spending the majority of the time in Abeokuta in Ogun State came from the relationship that was built early on. And it didn't happen overnight. It was some years. And I think that that's the first start when you start talking about, forming unity with the African-American community and Nigerians in Diaspora. And then those Nigerians that actually live in Nigeria have not got a chance to leave and go to other parts of the world. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of comes from, I think, different kind of cultural exchanges, here, and then culture exchanges there by offering, trade. It might be like something like trade trips where they're going to see, you got certain people that are interested in certain industries, being able to set those type of things up. But before even them leaving, say African Americans leaving here to go there, it's a lot of education that you have to do. Because our expectations, as you all know, is very high when it comes down to
with trade,
hospitality. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to greeting and being very nice, of course, y'all outdid it over there. I mean, it was, hey, Mom, this, that, bow. And I was like, okay, I'm supposed to bow back, So all those things, I didn't feel bad about, they treated me wrong, none of that. And it was always good to see people of the same race. So I was no fear of being stopped for something that had to do with my color or me, being judged by my color. Only thing I was judged by was my dialect. when I open my mouth to say something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so I think that, starting off with having, some events where it allows for African Americans and Nigerians to be able to co-mingle together, and just having kind of like an exchange. And it starts with kind of like what we're doing now, this platform, where it's relaxed, no expectations, from each other, and even being able to be open to answer those hard questions, or what we call the elephant in the room on certain things. Why do you all do this? And you all have an advantage because you all know why we may do some things, because you've been over here long enough. But for us, when it comes down to the Nigerian culture and the tradition, we don't have any clue about why certain things are done, certain ways. And so being able to have that dialogue, and that's one of the things we worked on with the Yoruba celebration culture, and even we co-hosted together, me and Chief Adeyemo. But the essence behind it was always unifying. How do we do things to unify both the Americans and those in the diaspora and those who are not considered to be in the diaspora? And so there are a lot of opportunities that once that whole, I call it a whole level of covering, is removed, where the distrust, there's a lot of distrust between the two. And that's kind of like that elephant in the room type of thing. And so, but I think when you build relationships and trust comes with that, then when you're saying, hey, we want Americans to invest in Nigeria, come visit Nigeria, it's more open for them to come, because now there's not a roadblock in front of them. Like, oh yeah, well, I know when I go, I don't have to worry about somebody might gonna snatch me, kidnap me, take me somewhere, or I might not understand the language that they're talking about. I can't eat the food. So just knowing that all the food over there is not all Nigerian food. There are places that serve American food for those who might not can be, the stomach not ready for that spicy food that you all have. Oh my goodness! I tasted, it was a soup. I can't remember the name of the soup. Pepper soup.
Pepper soup.
Oh, I didn't know it was that hot. My nose.
That's why it's called pepper soup.
My eyes were running. I was getting hot and sweaty. And
oh my God!
Yeah, that was another.
You definitely got a first-hand experience of how it is. Based on your explanation, that was quite interesting. And like you said, building relationship, trust comes with it. Over time. And also, the networking between the diasporans as well as those that live over here, trying to open up the society and make them, make our brothers and sisters here understand that the roadblocks are taken away, the doors are open for us to welcome you. I can't just stop imagining, what you have been through and what you have really experienced, and how gladly you are actually telling the story. It's quite amazing, but we really appreciate that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I did want to touch on, and we talked about, once you get beyond, and this is something that can happen simultaneously. It's not like it has to take years and years. When I think about the opportunities between, and I'm gonna use Ogun State specifically because of that's where High Chief was from.
Sure.
He talked about the most, when it comes in, and of course he told me about the other states and all of that, but that's one thing that he talked about the most. And because I am a Yamato Papalanto, I have to make sure that I'm taking care of home.
Sure, absolutely. You are more than welcome. Absolutely.
Yes.
You are more than welcome.
And so even with that, being that when I went over there and I saw even the textile process, and even what I have on now was a gift. The cloth was a gift, and I met with Fatima, and she actually created this jacket and a couple of other pieces, even my wedding dress that I had on. And so that's a whole nother area there, for us here as African Americans, to say, oh, I got something directly from Nigeria. I didn't buy it on the street corner or whatever. No, this is authentic. So I feel whenever I put on anything that I was given or I purchased from over there, you can't tell me nothing. I have on original.
The original, no copycats.
Not a copycat. And so in those areas, and even with Georgia being heavily agricultural, and when you look at Nigeria being heavily agricultural, of course, even with Ogun State. So those are different types of opportunities there. Being able to utilize our universities and colleges here in Georgia. We have two major ones that center around agriculture. And you start thinking about research and everything, and then the great universities that in existence over in Nigeria as well. So those are some partnerships. And then the most important part is the public and private partnerships, like organizations like NIDO and others, being able to step in as well and saying, hey, we want to help foster that relationship. And one thing I do know, being a former legislator and even looking at now when it comes to economics, I served on the Small Business Development Committee for at least about almost 8 years of the time I served. And then I served on economic development and tourism for about 4 years of the time that I served. So I got a chance to travel across the state and see what's going on in rural Georgia, of course, what's going on in metro area, and then being able to visit over in Nigeria and kind of seeing, okay, how can those two worlds be able to merge together? And the key is that one component dealing with agriculture, but then there's the tourism, there's the whole tech industry with so much now when you talk about remote work that can be done. And then thinking about how many young people that you all have in Nigeria. And I know that that's been a huge topic of what are we going to do with the young people? How do we provide meaningful work for them so that they don't have to stay in the same situation? Same thing that we're having to do here in the States. And then women empowerment is a whole nother segment as well. So there are great, many opportunities that are just laying there, and it's just going to take a matter of some action to be done and making some connections and showing Georgia why Nigeria is the ideal place to be able to create that business relationship. Because right now, Georgia does not have an actual business office in any part of Africa. They are located in all the other countries, but none in Africa.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's a word of we have to carry along and definitely continue to push that agenda. I'm happy that you mentioned organizations like NIDO and Nigerian-American South Savannah. This is a platform that we're using to be able to incorporate and at the same time, work towards, changing the status quo like as it is. Thank you very much for that. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes. I think we have so much potential. I just want to get on the point that you ended on, that we do not have any out of the 54 nations in Africa. We do not have, a trade liaison office in any of the countries, and they're, in other regions. And, that is a place where, untapped resources and talent, as you said. We have a lot of youths. So how can we work together to create, that platform from Georgia, and collaborate with, for example, you have already great partnership being a chief and your relationship with Ogun State, So how can we start that process here in the Nigerian diaspora? Over to you.
Okay. So before I answer that, I like to always use statistics.
Yes, ma'am.
As business people, and even you all as nonprofits, you run off of statistics, Everything, especially when dealing with government, they want to know what's the cause and effect with, what's the bottom line? How do we get to it? So
data is very important. Yeah.
Yes, as a trade snapshot, when it comes to Georgia and Nigeria, of course, Nigeria being one of Africa's largest economies, but have this under-tapped in direct trade with the United States. And so it's not just Georgia with the United States. And so the 2023 data that I pulled up says the exports from Georgia to Nigeria are approximately 340 million. The imports from Nigeria to Georgia are 170 million. In Georgia, those countries where Georgia actually has a footprint or international representation, 66% of the exports with Georgia and 83% of the total trade originated in those strategic markets. And so some of the top trade partners for imports in 2024, Mexico was at $18.6 billion. So remember earlier I said 340 million, and then you heard me say 170 million.
Yes.
But when you start talking about the trade partners where Georgia actually has a footprint in, Mexico is number one at 18.6 billion.
Wow.
China, 17.2 billion. South Korea, 16.6 billion. Germany, 11.8 billion. And Vietnam, 6.7 billion. So those are just the top five. So that the list kind of goes on, and they still are in the billions when it comes to that. And so that's why I talk about having the importance of having that office, located in Nigeria, because that gives a more direct focus. And what it does, it helps when it comes to those in Nigeria who might want to be investors in Georgia or doing business with Georgia. Mm-hmm. It helps with that process. And vice versa when it comes to Georgians who might want to do investments in Nigeria. There's a opportunity to not just tell them to go to the embassy and go through the embassy to get that. Now you have a direct to direct contact. And then there are also, I was reading in Nigeria where they have special economic zones.
Yep.
So those are some opportunities for Georgians who want to be able to do business in Nigeria, and having those incentives in place. In the state of Georgia, we have a lot of incentives depending on where you want to locate your business at. And if you want to do full manufacturing here, move the product here, then manufacture, or you bring in a product already, complete at, different levels with that. And I think the investment when it comes to Nigeria is investment, of course, in power, transportation, and manufacturing infrastructure. And that's important because, of course, as people coming from Georgia and from America, there's certain things we're used to.
Right.
And one things I noticed, we went visiting in Ogun and even like Lagos, the power, the constant of the power in the internet.
Yeah. Interruption.
Very, inconsistent. You just never knew. And I know the first time I was like, what's going on?
Blackout.
Blackout. And even though at the hotel we were, they would use the solar panels
and generator. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't as bad. But I was at one of the shop that Fatima's shop, and the power went out, and she was like in the middle of making the dress, and I was like, well, what's she going to do? I was asking my husband. She's like, oh, she'll get it done. They had a backup generator, so they working with the backup, and they're using the phone from their cell phone light, to help. And I was like, wow. I said, well, they believe in getting stuff done.
Yes.
But those kinds of things are what could hinder a great success for the business interchange between when you talk about the bilateral trade. So I think, us being able to have those conversations and even being able to speak with the elected body, because they are the ones who are actually creating the policies.
Yep.
And I think that, and I mentioned this before, is that with you all as towards the Nigerians and the diaspora, you have a special opportunity because you're able to see both sides of the coin. That means that you lived in Nigeria, you know what's going on there, and now you've come to, we're going to use America in this instance, and you see what the opportunities and things are here in America. Whereas me, I only have one-sided view, which is America, and those in Nigeria who never left have a one-sided view, which is only Nigeria.
That's true.
So I think with the important role that you all play with NIDO and being, you know, not just the ones that are here in America, but Canada and the other part of the Western world, is that you're able to say, hey, look, I know when I was here, this is what happened, but I've got the experience and knowledge that I need to bring back and say, listen, our elected bodies, we got to change this, and this, in order for us to be competitive and being able to reach those numbers in those billions. You know, we're doing work with Georgia, because when Georgia comes over, of course, they're used to coming into countries and helping with them, but you got to have certain policies in place. So that's where the conversation, where I see even with NIDO can play a role, is bringing those two parties together to be able to talk about what policies do we have in place now in Nigeria, and then what policies would need to be changed or improved upon to make it a better place to be able to do business. One of the things with Georgia for the past 13 years, this might be the 14th year, it is the number one place to do business in all of the United States. And this came from the Source magazine. But it didn't happen overnight. It came from policies, and me being a legislator, knowing that some policies had to change. A lot of red tape when it came down to how do you start a business, how many days it takes for the inspector to come and look at the business opening up. Those were minor changes, but we had to change legislation in order for that to happen. And so now in Georgia, when you register your business, you can register for 2 years without having to go and do a renewal. And in some cases, you might be able to do 5 years, as long as you're not changing anything as far as your officers. So those may seem minor, but they're major, especially when you want to come in, just want to come in. They have certain trade zones, free trade zones. So as long as you're in that free trade zone, you have elimination of certain taxes while the product is sitting there. And with, I know in Ogun State, of course, they have the trade there, and I know Lagos does. And in Georgia, of course, we had a Savannah. Shout out to Savannah. The Savannah port, along with the one in Brunswick, and then there's another one that's down there as well. And you import different things. But another piece of legislation that we did when I was in office that we signed on was expanding the port of Savannah, deepening the port. And that also came with the federal government that gave money to Georgia to be able to do that. So not only just Ogun State, but it has to be the federal with the president's office and all of those involved in the conversation as well. Because at the end of the day, what's good for Georgia is good for the United States. What's good for Ogun State or Lagos is good for Nigeria. And
that's true. That's true.
To have that conversation where they can see it's a win-win. And then once you get that infrastructure and all of that, just think of the other states that are going to want to come and open up a location in Nigeria. Other United States, other states, they say, oh, Georgia over there? Georgia? Oh, I know we need it, because, you know, we're very competitive over here as well. Just like Nigerians are very competitive. And so I think, like I said, it's such a great opportunity, but it starts with having that a centerpiece, being able to have the wherewithal to bring everybody to the table to have that conversation and conversation that results in action, and not us just keep talking.
Thank you. Absolutely. It's you, like I said, you really, give out very, very strong evidence-based facts that really needs to be applied in order to be able to facilitate and at the same time walk the talk. Because like you said, one thing is talking about it, discussing about something, but the next thing is walking that talk, having the right people with the right mindset, with the right vision to actually drive this agenda forward and be able to make it happen. That kind of leads to the next question that I have. You mentioned about the role which Nigerian-American professionals plays in the society, the diasporans. And also, I wouldn't want to only put it that way just to, I wouldn't want to only carve that out from the question, but what I want to say is, what would be your advice to not just to Nigerian-American professionals, but also to our African-American professionals, brothers and sisters that are so scared of going to Africa, so scared of venturing out to Africa? How can they be able to overcome that? What are your advice or your strategy you can share with them to overcome those unknown fear that, the media, unfortunately, some of the bad media have placed in their mind in order to be able not to, open up their mind to visit Africa? I can give you one example. Like, there were people that when you tell them about Africa, they will tell you, oh, are you going to a place whereby, you open your door, you will see a lion crossing by,
Or you're riding on the elephants. Instead of you have a driver and a Mercedes.
So what would be your good advice to them to overcome those challenges?
Yeah. So, I'm in all honesty, it's sad, but the media has played a very significant role and have done a good job in a bad way of tainting the thoughts of Americans, especially African Americans, for going back to Africa. We are very quick to go to South America. We are very quick to go to Mexico, to Canada, to Costa Rica, to some other places, even to Jamaica and the Bahamas. We'll go to Bahamas and Jamaica without a thought about it. Get on that cruise ship and we going and, we coming back. But if you say go to Nigeria or just Africa, I ain't going over there. And even some things that when I told people I was going, it's like, girl, you gonna be able to come back? What you gonna? It's kind of like what you said. They gonna have huts and you gonna be sleeping. What? No. Yeah, huts. And so, and that's been years and years of brainwash.
Yes.
To be able. But on the good side is that I think starting with people like myself that is not afraid to share my experience. When I came back, on my radio show, I did talk about my experiences there, and a lot of my close friends, who originally would have said, I want to go, but I don't know. But then when they heard me come back and say, oh, this happened, that happened, I told them the good and the bad, the things that shocked me. I was like, what? Things like that. And now they're saying, Valencia, we want to go. When are you going? And so I think it's, being open and not looking at expecting the same thing that you get in America over there. And I think that's what helped me a whole lot, especially going to the hotel, on the ride in the robes, that I was like, okay, I'm used to this and used to that. Okay, but this is not America unless you cross the Atlantic Ocean. So you are not in America. So, so I think having an open mind and open to a new adventure, a new way of thinking, a new culture, a new tradition, and even going as far as being able to say, this is where our ancestors came from. Yes. It's only when they came here that it was stripped. The things that when we go back to Africa, those things were stripped from them when they came to America. So that's why it seems odd and strange to us, because we never got a chance to experience that from our ancestors. Each generation it was taken away. So when I look at it that way, is that, oh, this is what they're doing. Even I'm able to find similarities and things that my grandparents did. And when I went to Nigeria, I was like, oh, that's probably where my grandmama got that from, or my granddaddy got that from, and never thought about that I would see it replicated, again. So my advice would be, to, if you're really interested, because you're gonna have some that just, no matter what you tell them, they're just not gonna go. So we're not talking to them. We're talking to the ones that are kind of on the edge and said, I want to go, but I don't know. So it's going with an open mind and just knowing that what you see in America, you're not going to see the exact thing when you go to Nigeria. And even if there's so many opportunities, one experience I did want to say real quickly, if I can, that was it was a real good experience. So in the area where we were living at, staying at in the hotel, the suites, there was a big mango tree, and so we were walking by the mango tree, and the mango fruit fell from the tree, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, the fruit fell from the tree." So my husband said, "Go ahead and get it. You can eat it." I said, "I can eat it." He's like, "Yeah." So we put it in the refrigerator, and then later on, I peeled the outside off of it, and then I ate it, and that was my first time ever tasting mango, because we don't grow mangoes here.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah. And so that was my first time tasting it, and it was really good. Different from the little mango that come in the fruit cup, of course, it was fresh. But just having that experience, alone, I was like, wow, I ate a mango from Africa, and it was good. It didn't mess my stomach up, and nothing, because that's the whole other thing you're thinking about. Oh, I can't drink the water over there, and all that. So it's just going with an open mind, I think, and then having conversations like this to kind of ease the anxiety, and then them going with someone that they know makes the difference as well.
Yes.
And also, that mango was organic. It was
fresh, right off the tree.
Nothing processed about it.
Here, with we so used to eating foods that are put chemicals, GMO. So when you taste something that's totally fresh, you're like, oh wow, So your system has to adjust. But once it adjusts, you'll get used to it. But I'm just so happy that you actually answered a lot of our questions in your responses. That were just awesome. But I did want us to conclude with just what are your last words of advice to both the diaspora community, both the African-American community? How can we unite? There is power in unity, and not just Nigerian, that we are part of, but, there's other countries. So, for example, what I've been seeing that's been going viral online this past week, the president of Burkina Faso, they've been trying to assassinate him, Ibrahim Traoré, but African Americans, people in the Caribbean, blacks all over the world, and Brazil, Latin American, they said, no, enough is enough. You can't, colonize us. They were specifically talking to France and the U.S. government. But they were French colonized, so specifically them, trying to steal their resources, because Burkina Faso is the fourth leading African nation in gold. Nigeria, we're rich in gold, petroleum, uranium. We have so much natural resources that we're probably the richest continent in the world. Now, it's probably due to, once again, mismanagement and lack of partnership with, once again, I say the Africans and African Americans. So what will be your last conclusion on, or call to action to us to come and unite? Because we are one. You said your father did the ancestry. I told most of my friends, go and do your DNA. You will find, I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 of you are Nigerian. Because we're the most populated. So of course we're going to claim y'all, So even if it's a few percent, and, of course, our people migrated. The colonizers divided us into all these countries. But it wasn't like that before. It was like Eastern Kingdom. That was like Ethiopian Kingdom, the Northern Kingdom, Egypt, Mali to Nigeria, Western Kingdom. We were kingdoms. It was, our people are descendants of royalty. So how can we strengthen that unity amongst us? Because what you have shown us through your story, and just being open-minded, you have been able to merge both. You now are married to a Nigerian. You even go home more often than me and Collins. I haven't been home in a couple of years. She's been home about 2-3 times in just a few months. So she done pass us. So do you understand? So she's our sister. She's out. So and that's a success story with a lot of people here. I'm like, look, if you ain't got nobody here, I guarantee you got a couple of husbands back in Africa. Like, you can't say the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Well, you have to open your mind and be, available to travel and to learn, because what they teach us in our books and what they see in TV. The only thing that sell, maybe did justice for Africa was like the movie Black Panther or like Coming to America that show like good positive aspects of Africa. But every other thing in the media has always been negative. So what will be your call to action to help us unite more and to be open to that unity and partnership?
Well, one thing is that I know that as the Nigerian community, you all do a lot of celebrations.
Yes.
A lot of celebrations. We thought we partied, but y'all got us beat. Y'all got the Americans beat. And I think that even utilizing those type of cultural celebrations that you all do is taking the time to, explain, why some of the processes are like they are. Like one quick example, I went to an event. It was a celebration, and I saw the women were on the floor, on the dance floor. Then I saw some other women and men bringing dollar bills, and they were,
spraying money.
Like that. So of course, as an American, I never had seen that before. So I was asking, what is that they're doing?
Somebody asked me, they're like, is this the strip club? No, the strip, y'all learned it from us. It's making it rain. Blessings. Showers of blessings.
Oh my goodness.
Right, so I was like, well, I know they're not strippers, so I know that wasn't the case. So I was like, well, what? You mean to tell me we got that from them, and we just kind of exploited it to a whole different aspect of it? But so that right there by itself, I had to ask. I was with Chief Adeyemo. I was like, what are they doing?
What's going on?
And then he explained. I was like, oh, okay. And so. It wasn't nothing uncommon the next time I saw it, but for someone that had never seen it and saw it for the first time. So I think being able to take the time that if you invite, and for you all in the diaspora to invite, some more of your African American friends, but when you invite them, make sure you explain it to them the tradition and the culture, because that makes a difference. Because when I went in, of course, I felt out of place because I didn't know what all was going on. Yeah. But once he started explaining, this is what that is, I was like, oh, okay. And then the different costumes that they wore in this particular celebration, another one that I went to, and he was able to explain, this represents this particular deity, this represents this is what this is for. And so I think being able to have events where you all are actually taking the time to explain it, and what that does is that makes us to be more respectful of your tradition and not taunt it or think it's a joke, because it's something very, and I learned that it's very sentimental and very serious when it comes down to your cultural and traditional rituals that take place. But because we don't understand, we become ignorant of it. And so I think that's one thing. And, and maybe also, coming up with having a trip that goes over during the festival time or something like that. But make sure before the trip you do a pre-meeting. Yeah. So they'll have such an
overview, right? An overview before you take them on a tour. Yeah. With that, and then I think that also, letting them know that there are opportunities for investment. That everybody that's Nigerian is not crooked, because a lot of us, look at that as scams that take place. But that goes back to what I talked about earlier about building that relationship, that trust relationship. It makes a huge difference with us as African Americans and our perceptions. But it starts with the individual being able to be willing to be open, and then on you all's part is embracing us, and even taking some of the negative thoughts that Africans have against African Americans as well. And I haven't ran into a whole lot of it, but I know it does exist because I was messing with my husband about it. I was like, what is Aunt Carter?
He was like, what?
I got that.
I probably didn't pronounce it right.
No.
And I was like, I heard that mean this, that. He's like, no, man, don't pay no attention to that. So those are, conversations that we know that takes place.
Yeah.
Just like we have conversations within our community about Africa. So it's not that it doesn't take place. It's so, being able to demystify the myths, that are there and taking each person as they are. And so I think NIDO can play a huge role in that by, like I said, if you're having an event, culture event, and even expressing it to your members that, hey, you have friends or people you met from the African-American community. When you all have the events, make sure you tell them that 8 o'clock don't mean 8 o'clock, because you get upset about that.
8 o'clock is 10 o'clock at night that time.
I learned that too. I was on time. I got there before time and waited about 2 hours. I would wonder, I said, why they breaking stuff into the facility?
Yes.
I said, you're supposed to start at 8.
Yes, ma'am.
So all of those, like I said, are cultural things that if I didn't know, I would be upset.
Right.
And I say, I don't want to come back to an event again.
Right.
And that'll change my whole perspective of anything, just that little small thing, but not knowing culturally, there's just something that happens.
Yeah. When we put 8 o'clock, that means that's when you start getting ready at home.
That's true. Unfortunately, they call it the African time.
African time. We have to show up
with
fashionably late. You must make an entrance.
When the parties are scheduled for 6 o'clock, nobody shows up until 9 p.m. 3 hours after.
Right.
Including the celebrants.
And we're laughing about it, but it's very key that we need to tell it. Even at our last AGM, we invited some people for the first time, and I forgot to tell them that. Oh wait, the time says this, but they got there on time and they saw we were still setting up.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is really very, very good conversation coming to you from NIDO Radio.
NIDO Radio and Wellness Wahala Podcast.
With Wellness and Wahala Podcast with our honorable Chief
VIP.
Absolutely. Valencia Stovall.
Yes.
Hopefully, I look forward to one day we're going to have like a Nigerian cultural night in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, and in Nigeria, a tour. Yeah.
Yeah, invite different Nigerian cultures. Or maybe we can even have it in Nigeria as well.
Yes.
Having Nigerian-American cultural night.
Yes.
Whereby we can showcase different American culture as well as Nigerian culture. And, use that opportunity to continue to drive this conversation.
Yes.
And promote this conversation,
Yes.
I think I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, because one other quick thing is that when African Americans think about our history in Africa, the two places that come to mind immediately, of course, is Senegal and Ghana. And I must say that Ghana has done an outstanding job of really maximizing off of that.
Yes.
And not until I had done some research myself and when Chief told me about Badagry, I was like, I ain't never heard of Badagry. Where is that at?
Yes.
And so, and once he told me, and I was like, okay, and I started looking up information. I was like, oh, that's where most of the Nigerians left from. Okay, so if my ancestor was Europe, but more than likely they left from that particular port of entry, a port of exit. And so, but even with that, there's a lot of work, of course, infrastructure work that needs to be done to make it appealing, like the one in Ghana and Senegal. I haven't visited either one, but looked up a whole lot of research.
Yes.
So that kind of goes back to what I was talking about, having that conversation with the elected officials and helping them to understand there's a lot of missed opportunity, millions and billions of dollars in tourism all by itself.
Yes.
Not even talk about the agriculture aspect of it.
Yes.
That is absolutely correct. Absolutely. And that also includes the conversation that we, the Nigerian diaspora, should also continue to push back home in terms of, modernizing some of these, I won't say modernizing, but putting those facilities to be in a good condition.
Yes.
So that we can be able to invite our brothers and sisters out here to be able to experience authentic and, the full African culture and, the pride of Africa.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So it's good to have you. Thank you for talking about your full circle experience. I mean, going to the Badagry slave point of no return and, tracing your DNA and getting married and becoming a chief and, and then also serving honorably, as an African-American woman to serve in a government position here in the U.S. is a big deal. And to do it well for 8 years and you continue even while you're out of office, to be a wonderful stateswoman and a representative for not just the, Black American community, but also now the Nigerian community and diaspora. So thank you so much for being our wonderful VVIP guest on the Nigerian and Diaspora Organization radio show and our Wellness Wahala podcast. And just God bless you, God bless America, and God bless our great nation, Nigeria, and of course, Africa. Thank you.
God bless America and God bless Nigeria. Thank you very much, Honorable. We look forward